Hi everyone, Morphy here. I'm going to be talking today once again with Robert Reed. Now, I don't know what I've done to deserve this. The guy's such a hard interview. It's like I have to drag every single answer out of him. He never just gives a straight answer to a straight question. Just like my other guests recently. Lilith, every answer dragged out. Jackson Wheat, you couldn't get a word out of him. Seriously, I've been very lucky with the people that I've interviewed so far. Anybody else who's interested in coming on and doing a Morphy interview, please, just write to me. Now, I'm going to be shooting this in a slightly different way today, and thanks to Peter from GonnaGoFor It for trying to improve my quality of production. Peter, it's very much appreciated. And also thanks to Notjah Witness, who actually helped me with my voice sound. Now, we should get much better sound from the guests today because of the work that those guys did for me. So thank you very much. So, Robert, good morning. Good morning for me. Good evening for you.
For me, good evening for me. Yeah.
Yes. So, sorry I was a little bit late. As I told you, I was at the Anzac Dawn service, which is for fallen servicemen from the Australian and New Zealand Corps. People basically who died to protect our freedoms that we enjoy today. And they did it in an interesting way, social distancing style, is that they had the service going on in the park and the buglers and people down there playing the music. And it was supposed to go from 5 to 6 my time until 6:05. And what actually happened is we've got various parks around here, and they didn't quite coordinate it. So it was like the bugles were being played, or trumpets were being played in a round. It started off to my right, and then the guy in a park sort of more ahead went off, and then the one on the left. And it was, so they didn't quite get their timings right. But it was good to see about half of our street were actually out, paying respects, and a lot of people brought candles out and things like that. It was very, very nice.
Solid, yeah.
Yeah, and it's good to see that people appreciate the, sacrifice that others have made so that we enjoy the lives we have today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How are you anyway? How's your foot been?
The foot sucks. I'm in a lot of pain. I actually had this thing. There it is, shoved in an MRI just yesterday, just to make sure things are okay, and it still sucks. And they're just now starting to open up surgery centers, so maybe I can get my foot cut on here a lot sooner than later, because right now it just really hurts. But that's life.
Yeah, well, let's hope you get that up as soon as possible. So did they have to put you all the way in the MRI?
No, they did not. So when my first MRI, I think, was in 1992. I can't remember. I think it was my left bicep I tore. And I think back then it was still somewhat new technology. And so if you farted, sneezed, if you twitched a muscle, it completely screwed up the image. So they had to start it all over. It's a lot better now. It only took me, I think, maybe an hour and 15 minutes to get this thing done. And they shoved me in there up to my chest, which is great because I'm somewhat claustrophobic. And those things are about that big. And so if I had to go all the way in, it would have sucked. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, I feel really claustrophobic in those. I had one a little while ago for my back. And all the way in. And and I'm somewhat slimmer than you are. I feel pretty jammed into one of those things. So
those things are the worst. I mean, they do their job, but man, were you face down for yours since it was your back?
No, still face up. Yeah.
Oh, that if it was face down, you can kind of go to a happier place. But the first time I did it, again, 30 years ago, it was on that bicep. They shoved me all the way in the machine. I mean, it was like a coffin. If I sucked my tongue out, I felt like I could have licked the top of this thing. And at the time, I was 200, well, I'm the same size now. it just wasn't a pleasant experience. I did not enjoy that at all.
No, they had a little mirror set up with mine so that I could see out rather than just seeing the thing.
I couldn't see shit. I just saw this white, whatever the fuck you want, the top of the machine, and it felt like it was this close to my face, and it was just terrible. The one from yesterday is a little bit bigger, but at least my head was out, so it kind of helped with the claustrophobia.
Yeah, it's much better. Anyway, so perhaps we should get on with the business of today. Okay, Robert. So we agreed that today's session was going to be talking about our counter-apologists, ones that have had an influence on perhaps your journey. And the first one I thought we'd talk about would be Matt Dillahunty. And I came across Matt on the Atheist Experience first. I've watched an awful lot of his Patreon project videos as well. But how did you come across Matt, and what influence did he have?
So Matt has somewhat of a sentimental value almost to me. So when I first came across the Atheist Experience a long time ago, I was still married. I was still super Christian. My wife was super Catholic. Her family was super Catholic. And this was before all of the graphics. So their background was literally just a poster hanging up behind them. And really long story short, I still had questions, but I couldn't say I was an atheist. I didn't even know what the fuck that meant. But I'd see Matt, I would see the sign, and they're right down the street from where I live. Their arguments always made sense to me, but I couldn't say that out loud. So it was kind of like watching porn behind your wife's back. So I'm like, oh, what is this Atheist Experience shit? Who's this Matt guy? Who's this bald-headed fucker talking to me? And so he always kind of holds a place in my heart for that. And Matt Dillahunty reminds me a lot of my best friend Simon, who lives in Colorado. Simon is very dry. And when he says something, you should listen to it because it's always the truth. And what I love about Matt is he cuts straight to the quick. There's no bullshit. And it's just bam. And I'm probably a biased opinion, but when you listen to Matt talk, I truly believe even the Christians who listen to his points, they'll say one thing. Oh, no, that's wrong. But when they go away from that debate, there's like, oh, shit, that made sense. It's really hard to argue the truth, right? So if Matt says something along the lines, like he always comes back to slavery. That's kind of his jam. And so when he hits slavery, it all makes sense. Now, like a Sachem Bruggencate, by what standard do you judge slavery? I think that's what he says, but deep down inside, you're just like, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. It's just really hard to argue Matt because Matt just brings facts to the table. And he was honestly the first atheist I saw and related to while I was still a hardcore Christian. So I will always have a special place in my heart for people like Matt Dillahunty, especially Matt Dillahunty.
So, one of the things that you said there about Matt, and it's absolutely the case. He's a no bullshit sort of guy. He says it like it is. And you are very much like that as well. You're a no bullshit guy who says it like it is. Have you always been like that, or is that part of Matt's influence?
No, that's and so it's on, especially my mom's side of the family. And for the two ladies I've taken back home to Louisiana, I've told them, especially with my uncle, my youngest uncle, I've always told them, if you ask him, do I look fat in this dress? You need to be ready for both possible answers. It's just, we're really horrible liars. And we've been accused of wielding honesty like a blunt object. Don't ask if you don't want the answer. So I've always kind of been in your face just in terms of my honesty. I applied that to when I was a Christian, when I even hate to say this again, when I told gay people that you're a faggot and you chose that lifestyle, but that was my honesty back then. Now my honesty is different, but I'm still just as upfront. Matt probably appealed to me because he was the exact same way. He was just saying then what I wanted to say at the moment, but I couldn't because I was Christian and I was married to a hyper Catholic. So I related to him because he was in your face, but he was in your face with honesty. And you just can't debate honesty. You can't.
Robert, I don't think, I mean, twice you've mentioned your attitude towards gays when you were a Christian, and you mentioned it in our last talk, and you mentioned it again today. But I don't think, I mean, apart from the fact that you probably upset a few people, I don't think you should be apologetic because we're all on a journey. And the fact is we're day by day trying to do better, and you now know better. And I think the fact that you actually feel bad about what you used to say is actually a credit to you.
Well, thank you very much. And I think, excuse me, some of it is, again, my big sister is transgender. And a lot of the stuff that was drilled in my head that I said on a day-by-day basis, I was saying it to my sister. Where's my fingers? I didn't know it because there was no word for gay. There was no word for transgender when I was a kid. You were either a faggot or a sinner. And so that's what I was taught to say. And it was just, I mean, yeah, it still sticks with me. I mean, I accidentally gave a coworker a concussion a long time. It was literally a, hey, what's that? And as soon as I turned and hit my elbow, Corey walked around the corner and I hit her square in her head, knocked her almost out. To this day, I still feel bad. And every day I see her, let me buy you a drink. I'm really sorry. It just sticks with you. That was one time. I called gay people faggots, abomination for almost the first 3.5 decades of my life. Yeah, I feel like shit that I did it. I'm glad I'm on this side of it, but I still feel terrible because I was in your face about it. And I'm not proud of that fact at all. At all.
So if you think about somebody like Megan Phelps Roper, who was in the, which is it? What's the church?
Westboro Baptist.
Westboro Baptist. She was out on those picket lines, and how must she look back now at those times? So, and I'm just thinking about other people like Majid Nawaz. I don't know if you've come across Majid. He was going around trying to recruit people to not necessarily be jihadis. He was more political, but he wanted to forward the cause of Islam by taking political power. And yeah, he's reformed now and is very much somebody who wants to change Islam in the same way that Christianity has changed in many places, so that it's not about jihadism and killing gay people or killing non-believers and so on. So he's changed his mind an awful lot. And I think people who make those sort of big changes, as I said, it's a day-by-day process, and we're just all trying to be better and better as we go through life.
Yeah. And and you're absolutely right. Life is a journey. And even when I was a Christian, I still was of the mindset. And pardon the sniffles, like I said, I think this eye. So these are allergy sniffles, not COVID sniffles. Don't worry. But, even when I was a Christian, it's like, if you're the same person today as you were 10 years ago, you're doing it wrong. And I even said when I was a Christian, the one thing I want on my headstone is, here lies the biggest hypocrite. In that you should change your mind almost on a daily basis. If not, you're not challenging yourself. You're not reading enough. You're not talking to enough people who violently disagree with you. Because how else are you going to learn shit? It's kind of like church. If you're sitting in a room, I had this conversation with Lilith before I got on the phone with you, and that, I mean, yeah, you're supposed to change. And one of the ladies I used to train was a Jehovah's Witness, and if she told me something on Monday, I literally would say it back to her on Tuesday. Except I didn't have the enthusiasm in my voice. And she told me, I don't want you to say this back to me anymore. It's like, that's what your pastor just told you, or your elder. No, I'm saying it. Well, when you say it, it sounds stupid. It's like, I just said word for word what that guy said, except I'm the shitty person for it. So bottom, you're supposed to change. And so when you hear new information, like there's nothing wrong with being gay, you're supposed to change. I still feel like shit for what I used to say and believe, but I've changed, as we all should change. And you should be challenged every single day. And that's kind of what I like about Matt and a lot of counter apologists, is that they will straight up say, I don't have the answers. Or if you prove, like Bill Nye with his debate against Ken Ham, one of the last questions they ask is, what would change your mind? And he said, evidence. Ken Ham said, nothing at all. There's nothing you can say that will ever change me. And I'm like, man, if that doesn't say everything, then I don't know what the fuck does. You're supposed to change when people give you new information. Sorry, I'm babbling, but that one just came to my mind. You're supposed to change as people give you new information. There's nothing wrong with admitting that you were in error.
I think that was the most telling part of that whole debate, was that last section where Bill Nye said, just give me some evidence and I'll change my mind. And Ken Ham said, nothing's going to change my mind. That was, you didn't even have to watch the whole lot. Just that little section said everything.
That's sad to me.
Do you sometimes wish, like Matt, that you had the button to hang up on people? Boom.
You know what? Only twice. We interviewed a guy named Joseph Abraham, and that was hands down the grossest interview ever. I didn't have the button. I don't control the keyboard. Peter does. I would have hung up on that guy. We got about an hour into it, and Matt's thing is slavery. My thing is rape. Probably because what I do for a living. And there's a passage in Deuteronomy that basically says it's a you break it, you buy it clause. If you rape a virgin, you have to pay for her, then you have to marry her. There is no context by which that's okay. So we started talking about that. And basically this asshole gave the biblical justification as to why rape was okay. And in modern day, like right fucking now, he was talking, what did he say? What if she gets blackout drunk? Kind of like, well, if you drink too much Coors Light, you deserve to be raped. I lost it. And now if I was on the control switch, yes, I would have pulled a Dillahunty and I would have hung up on him. Because there's nothing to say after someone blurts something as emotionally numb as that. So yes, there are times I wish I had the hang up button. And we also interviewed Matt Powell, if you know that asshole.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Before we went on air with Matt Powell, it's a pregame show. Hey, I'm Robert. Hey, it's nice to meet you, Matt, all this other stuff. And before we went on air, the first thing he asked was, hey, are you two, talking about me and Peter, are you two homos? What does that have to do with our conversation? I would have hung up on him right then and there. I would have apologized to the audience. And that just would have been the end of it. So, yeah, there are definitely times I wish I could hang up on apologists and Christians in general. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I are in the same boat, just going back a tiny bit, because we're immoral atheists, that if we actually were in the company of a woman who was blind drunk, we would escort her home and make sure that she got home okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've actually done that. I'm sure lots of people have.
Yeah. It's incredible that they can try to justify that. And I think Matt's knowledge of the Bible and the knowledge of those passages when people phone up and try to talk about slavery is one of the strengths. I've probably seen enough of him talking about slavery now that I don't fast forward through those bits. But for this section, Robert, with Matt Dillahunty, okay. I'm just going to finish this section by saying that for this section, you're done. Like Matt.
Okay.
You're done.
You're done. You're done. You're done. Okay.
Okay, Robert. The second person that was on your list of counter-apologists that you wanted to talk about was Tracie Harris. I'm a big fan of Tracie as well, and I'm really missing her being on the Atheist Experience.
So am I.
And I'm not going to wax lyrical and give my thoughts about her, but one thing I will say before I start you off is that Matt Dillahunty often credits Tracie Harris with his best arguments.
As he should. As he should. She is... First, she and I are going to get married. She just doesn't know it yet. I saw her probably maybe one of her last public appearances as she represented the atheist community of Austin before the big split up. And I got to see her on the Texas Capitol speaking, and she was amazing. Just amazing. And probably my favorite part about Tracie Harris as a counter-apologist is I really doubt she would even call herself a counter-apologist. She doesn't like debates. She's openly admitted she doesn't watch debates. But she's another one that you just can't argue. And I've put Lilith in the same category. Because I remember, God, who was it? I can't remember the fucker's name. But there was 2 moments to where someone called into the Atheist Experience and they try to bring Bible knowledge. And she just crushed them. And she's just one of those, if you don't know your shit, don't call Tracie Harris. Call me or someone else who knows the Bible but doesn't know the Bible. Again, I put Lilith in the same category as Tracie Harris. If you don't know that book word for fucking word, you're going to lose, and she's going to embarrass you. She would never call herself a debater or a counter-apologist, but she's the best one there is because she has studied the Bible. And she's an atheist because she has studied the Bible. And her knowledge just makes her unbeatable. So, I mean, of all my counter-apologists, she's probably my favorite because she would never call herself a counter-apologist. And you just can't argue. When someone says this is taken out of context or the normal Christian comeback, you can't pull that shit on Tracie. You just can't do it. She knows too much. She knows too much.
I've got a couple of pictures on the screen here. She's got her sitting next to Matt Dillahunty, and that's the dynamic duo that right there. I mean, if I was a Christian, I certainly wouldn't be phoning in that day with Matt and Tracie as host and co-host.
If it's Matt and Tracie, so the co-host chair, if I'm looking at it, is on the right and she's on the left. Is it her in a darker colored shirt with about shoulder length curly hair?
Yeah, she's got shoulder length curly hair. Yeah.
Is it the darker shirt? Is it like a?
No, she's wearing like a top and a jumper over the top.
Okay. Like you call it a jumper. We would call it a hoodie. I can't remember the color, but if that's the one, that may be the episode. The guy was John. Yeah, so shoulder length. She has a t-shirt. We call it a hoodie. You would call it a jumper. And she shredded that guy. And God, what was it? It was the all-powerful thing. And she was basically breaking down, if this is the best your God can do, I'm not impressed. And it's one of her more famous clips. And she just crushed him. And she didn't crush him with opinion. She crushed him with facts and biblical facts. And this guy was left stumbling. And she was just like, look, the Bible says blank, 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 blank. This is the person who wrote it. This is when it was written. Don't give me any bullshit. I already know my stuff. And she just crushed him. So if we're talking about Jumper, Tracie, then that was the episode. It's one of her more famous episodes. And again, you just can't argue with someone who knows what the hell they're talking about.
It's interesting because like Matt's sitting there wearing an orange t-shirt, and I was just thinking while you were talking there, just a stupid thought came into my head that if Donald Trump wore that same cheese shirt, he'd look like he was wearing the morph suit.
He probably would. That guy, we maybe have to do a whole nother episode just on Donald Trump. But yeah, we Americans may not make it out of COVID just because of that guy, just so you know my opinion.
So you don't think that injecting Lysol is the way to go?
Probably not. I graduated college with the lowest possible GPA you could possibly graduate with and still call yourself a college graduate. And even I know not to inject myself with Lysol or Clorox bleach. You don't have to be a genius not to know. He actually walked that back, which, as far as I'm concerned, was just a matter of time. He's like, I was only being sarcastic. It's like, no, you weren't. No, you weren't. He's just stupid. We're doomed. I hope you guys do better. We've got the worst leader you could possibly have during the COVID shit. America doesn't stand a chance. Texas doesn't stand a chance.
It shows in the figures. You were behind Spain just at the start of these holidays that I'm in at the moment. You were behind Spain, and now you've got 4 times as many cases as Spain. It's crazy, and you've got these people out, protesting, walking around with guns and things, and saying it's our freedoms and so on. And perhaps they should actually think about things like child slavery and stuff like that. That's a real infringement on your freedoms. Just having to stay home for a bit so that you're not infecting other people is not an infringement of your freedom.
Oh, yeah. I tweeted about that the other day, and the sad part is a football player took a knee because he didn't think it was a good idea to shoot black people in the back. He was called unpatriotic. We said he hated the troops. He hates America. He hates the flag. And we crucified that guy. That's for just simply taking a knee during a fucking song. These people are carrying guns the size of my fucking thigh, wearing bulletproof vests, violating a public health mandate. Some way, somehow, this is about the Second Amendment. And we call these people patriots. Trump told football players, you're a son of a bitch. And if you don't love this country, get the fuck out. He has yet to say anything about idiots carrying bazookas, standing face to face with doctors and nurses trying to save this country. He's totally silent. A football player takes a knee and he's a son of a bitch. Love it or leave it. That's just saying, America is not going to make it out of this. We've got the worst leadership during the worst possible time. We're a third world country with modern technology. We're doomed. I love all of y'all. I'm going to die soon, and it's all going to be because we have a piece of shit in the White House running the country during the worst possible time. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, he can't say anything about those guys because that's his supporter base, isn't it? I mean, basically, you've got to be a fuckwit with a gun to be a Trump supporter.
Pretty much. That should be a T-shirt. You fucking nailed it. Fuckwit with a gun. If I make it out of this COVID thing, that may be my next tattoo. Fuckwit with a gun. Pretty much.
So the other picture of Tracie that I've got here is she was on an episode with David Fitzgerald. And I know that you probably don't know a lot about David, but he's written the book Nailed. So he wrote the book Nailed in 2010, which is 10 myths that show why Jesus was a myth. I don't think I've got the wording quite right, but basically show that Jesus never existed at all, I think was what I said.
Yeah.
And then there's a 3-part, a trilogy, like Lord of the Rings, and it's a big, thick trilogy that comes after that called Jesus Mything in Action, and it goes through a lot of the criticisms that he got from the first book. And I've got these both on audiobook, and I've listened to them a lot of times, and I've become more and more convinced that it is all just founded on a myth. And we talked about the Raglan scale last time.
Yes, I looked that
22 characteristics, and Jesus gets 20 out of 22 on this scale, and Moses gets 20 out of 22 as well, which is a high indication of mythicism. But it's interesting that he said that since he wrote these books, he's been approached by ex-Muslim scholars who have said that they think Muhammad was a myth. And, he's been approached by people from all sorts of religions saying that they think that, whoever their religion is founded on is a myth. And he's saying, so perhaps it's actually the normal thing that it's all founded on a myth. So I would look him up if I were you. Have a look at those books, because it's interesting. And he says himself that he's not actually a biblical scholar. He's just done a lot of research. He sees himself as a battlefield reporter rather than a soldier. And so he's gone through the works of Bart Ehrman and Richard Carrier, obviously, but also he tries as much as possible to actually quote his information from people who are theist scholars. So using their points to prove that what they actually are saying is not true, which is
absolutely
which is interesting. Anyway, so Tracie Harris, big thumbs up to Tracie Harris. She is great.
2 of them.
And we'll move on to our next person. Okay, so I'm a big fan of this man as well, Robert. Aron Ra. I often think he should be the fifth horseman. He's
I agree.
I found him very disconcerting when I first came across him. I'll just explain why, because it's quite funny. The first time I actually saw him, he's got this southern accent. And it's not an accent that you associate necessarily with high intelligence. Because Jackson's just one state away from Aron, so he's got a similar sort of accent. And so the first time I saw Aron talk, for about the first 30 seconds, I just thought, who is this yokel? He's a great big guy, who's speaking with his southern accent, and then after I've been listening for about a minute and a half, I thought, this guy is really smart and really knows his shit. And
very.
So he kind of primed me before I actually spoke to Jackson, because Jackson has got that same sort of accent, so I didn't prejudge him. And you think that actually coming from my background, I'm from a very, very sort of slum, run-down part of East London, and I don't speak with the accent I grew up with. I can do the accent I grew up with. It's sort of, hello, Joel, got a new motor, sort of thing. That also is not an accent that you associate with any sort of intelligence. So even coming from that experience, I had that prejudice. But it was knocked out of me pretty quickly, because, Aron just rolls off fact after fact after fact.
Yep.
So, what's your take on him, and what influence did he have?
Well, one, am I going through puberty? Wow. Sorry again, allergies. Oh, sorry, everybody. I met him on the same day I saw Tracie Harris speak. Now, I admit I'm a little bit bigger than the average person. Aron Ra isn't that big. And so I was like, you're Aron Ra. Hey, how's it going down there? So he definitely comes across as this mountain of a man. And maybe it's just by my standards, he's actually not that physically big. Now, that being said, intellectually, he's 8 foot 12 inches tall. He's enormous. And one of the things I love about Aron Ra is Aron does not put up with bullshit at all. I listened to him hit Ray Comfort, Cy Tim Bruggencate, and it's kind of like my STOP analogy from our last talk. Apologists need to see who can hold on to their breath the longest. And Aron just doesn't ever get to that game. So he's always one step ahead. So I love him for the same reason I love all the counter apologists. I just think he's just a little bit better at it. He can always stay one step ahead of whatever counter apologist. He knows their arguments. He knows their bullshit. Aron does a great job of saying just one step ahead. Anyone who talks to Christians in an interview form or a debate form would do well to study just a little bit of Aron Ra, because he does a great job of just staying literally one step ahead of the person playing the word games and all the bullshit that apologists do. He's great at staying one step ahead. That's why I love the guy.
I think probably the one criticism I would have, I've seen a couple of debates of his where he's made his point, and clearly he's made good points, and the guy keeps coming out with the same bullshit, and Aron almost seems to sit there just getting bored. It's just like he just can't believe they're still saying it.
Yes.
And that's the one criticism. I think if you're in that situation, you've got to try and stay engaged, even if you're just hearing it for the 15 millionth time.
And it was the side 10 Bruggen debate on Dogma Debate. And you're right. He has zero patience for bullshit. And like we said the last time, nobody is going to get into a debate with someone who thinks, how about this? No board certified gynecologist is going to get into a debate with someone who says storks deliver babies. Usually be like, I've already told you how this works. You're just sitting on some bullshit. Please stop talking. And so when Aron says, and he's got facts to back it up, but let's say Ray Comfort just says, you're a liar, you're a thief, you watch whatever, his normal shit. Aron got rid of that argument, 10 minutes ago. And so when you're still saying the same bullshit that he's already dunked on, you're absolutely right. Aron just kind of checking his phone, filing his nails. But I get it. It's again, no one's going to debate in modern day, does a stork bring a baby? No. A sperm has to meet egg. That's how it works. This discussion is over. And so when Aron sits there with someone who's saying the same shit, oh yeah, he gets a little bit bored because he's already talked about it. And it's like, let's move on to the next point.
Yeah.
So he's kind of an asshole.
I think some of his best work, I don't know if you watched the whole series on the flood that he's got on his channel, how dendrochronology disproves the flood, how archaeology disproves the flood, and so on. Those were absolutely spellbinding, and I watched them multiple times. And I loved the video debate that he had with Kent Hovind. That was fantastic.
I tried to watch that, and I couldn't. I tried, but keep going, yeah.
I just fast forward through Kent's bits these days because I know exactly what he's going to say. He's been saying the same stuff forever.
Right.
But Aron's deconstruction of it was just fantastic. And it's like you say, just one fact after the other. It's just a torrent of logic and facts. It's fantastic.
Yep.
So
actually, that one was almost 3 hours long, if I remember, which was another reason why I just couldn't finish it, because it was like, even if it was just 30 minutes, stop. Right? Kent Hovind is an idiot. Who listens to that guy? And so, if it was just 40 minutes, it should only take 4 seconds to disprove what Kent Hovind is saying. Aron was just being nice by giving him this time.
There was a debate that I listened to with Kent Hovind and King Crocoduck. I've not seen much from King Crocoduck lately, but he's a
physicist.
Been a while.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
yep.
So he's a physicist, and he was just talking about the light coming from the stars. So if we're looking at light from a star that's 10,000 light years away, that light's been traveling 10,000 years to get here. If we're looking at an object that's, 1 million light years away, it's been traveling 1 million years. So the universe can't be 6,000 years old. And Kent Hovind talked about,
right,
the heavens being stretched out. And King Crocoduck pointed out that you can't just stretch that light out because it gets redshifted into oblivion. And Kent Hovind clearly had no idea what he meant by that. The light would just disappear because the wavelength would change that much, and he had no idea what he was talking about. And
none.
If you don't know about these sciences, you probably should just refrain from commenting.
Exactly.
Yesterday, I don't know if you followed the feed, but he started off with, the Big Bang, and after a few tweets, he was talking about the complexity of the cell, and you just think this is almost like the Kent Hovind playbook that this guy's coming out with.
You cut out. What was who did you say?
There was a guy on Twitter yesterday who he was trying to argue with me and a couple of other people, and he started off with the Big Bang, and we had a few on that, and then before we got very much into it, another 20 tweets down the line, he was going on about complexities of cells and how could dinosaurs possibly be the ancestors of chickens and things like this. And you just thought, this is the Kent Hovind. It's the Kent Hovind playbook. It's just.
It is.
And I don't think this is what gets me with all of this. And I know we're sort of wandering a bit off topic, but.
Try me.
If you look at the proportion of atheists, the proportion of atheists is highest amongst scientists. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of scientists, when they do the surveys, the highest proportion of atheism is amongst biologists.
Sure.
The people who actually know about the complexities of the cells and evolution and all this sort of stuff and know it in depth are the ones who are least likely to believe in a designer. You'd think that would tell people something, wouldn't you?
You think it would. And these conversations are crazy because I seriously, I was on the phone with Lilith a couple of hours before I talked to you, and it speaks to the strength of the indoctrination process, and that you're absolutely right. You can either listen to a Neil deGrasse Tyson, a Richard Dawkins. I mean, Neil won't even talk about atheism. He won't even identify as an unbeliever. Just like, these are the facts. This is what it supports. He's got a PhD. Or you can listen to someone who thinks a virgin got pregnant and a snake actually talked. And it's like, it literally speaks to the strength, because we were talking about how crazy certain things sound, and the reason why at least people like I and others, you just don't go head first into a Christian and be like, you're fucking stupid. Because 10 years ago, I said the exact same thing. And you could sit here and have someone tell you, no, the universe is over 13 billion years old. Like, nope, you're wrong. You're wrong. I read Genesis, and it's 6,000 years old, and a snake talked, and a dead Jew came back to life. You're wrong. It's the indoctrination process. So, yeah, you can listen to Ken Ham, or you can listen to an actual scientist. People actually still listen to Ken Ham because you're told to do it. He confirms what it is you already believe. That's the scary part.
I went to see Neil deGrasse Tyson. He came to Perth a couple of years ago and gave a talk, and we met him afterwards. He's a very, very clever man, and he had a few things, like you say, he didn't identify himself as a non-believer, but he had a few things to say about religious people during that talk, and the sort of things that they believe. But he was very clever, and he had a thought while he was on stage. He was, as part of his presentation, just something popped into his head, and he said, I've got to tweet that, and he just stopped and he started tweeting it, and it was the thought that he'd come up with. It was brilliant. It was Americans are inching towards the metric system.
All right, so you say that, and the scary thing about the fucking metric system is that 5th grade, that's the early 80s, I remember when the United States tried the metric system for about a week. We said, yeah, fuck that. because we started going kilos and all centimeters, and they were like, that requires effort, so we just dropped it. And so, yeah, we aren't the brightest bulb of the Christmas tree. So, yeah, inching towards the metric system is fucking perfect, because I'm old enough to remember when we tried it. You're like, yeah, let's forget it. Let's just stick with what we got.
It's interesting because we changed to metric while I was sort of a teenager, and
holy crap.
So there's some things that I still do in old money, and other things that I do in metric system. So yeah, I know what my height is in feet and inches, and not centimeters. But I know what my weight is in kilograms. It's crazy.
We have my 5 years as a football player at UT. Oscar Jacobson, the most explosive man in North America. I remember he always made us say he was from, I think it was Iceland. He was one of the most world-renowned strength coaches at the time, and he had UT on the metric system. So we never lifted weights in pounds. So for 5 years, Oscar would not even try. And so for 5 years, I just spoke metric. So when people asked, well, how much do you bench press? I'd be like, 221 kilos. What are you talking about? And they're like, well, what the fuck is that? I was like, 221 kilos. Why do you ask? And so for 5 years of my life, that's all we did was metric. And then you kind of have to switch back when you realize the rest of America doesn't speak metric. And I still remember watching, because I hate myself, I can't remember who the other guy was, but he was on with Tucker Carlson. And that should tell you everything you need to know about this conversation on Fox News. And they labeled themselves metric phobes. And that America is too American to switch over to the metric system. And if you don't like it, then you hate America and you're a metrophobe. And it was like, wow, we're just asking you to go to centimeters and kilos. And yeah, we're really bad at that portion. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're doomed. We're not making it out of COVID. We are not making it out of COVID for that one reason. We suck.
If you go metric, you're going to have, guys with guns walking around protesting in the streets.
Kind of like now.
Yeah. Exactly like
that. I know thousands of Americans are going to die, but God damn it, I've got the right to carry bazookas. That's just really sad. We're doomed. We don't stand a chance.
Go. Okay, Robert, the fourth and final person on your list, and it seems that we haven't spent all of our time talking about these people. We've sort of wandered off all over, but let's try and drag it back here, and let's talk about Christopher Hitchens.
Perfect. Great way to end it. So, God, who was it? Either way, every side needs their asshole. Every argument needs a bad guy. I'm thinking if they have Cy Ten Bruggencate, we have Christopher Hitchens. And every once in a while, you just need someone to say, fuck you. And that was the Hitch. That guy was great. And I remember probably my favorite interview or debate. I can't remember the name, but it was a bunch of Catholic priests versus Hitchens and Stephen Fry.
I saw that.
Now, I still, yeah, exactly. So you know where I'm going with this. I still remember, again, when people, God, this thing is so backwards, but my tattoo is what let everyone know that I didn't believe in a God. And there was one person in particular, and we actually started talking about the Catholic priesthood. And I was like, you shut the whole fucking thing down, turn it into a museum, sell those paintings, give it to the poor people. And I remember this person's rebuttal was, what is it? Pretty much, you can't blame the Catholic, the sex scandal on just a handful of priests. So he was one of those like, look, it's only a couple of them. I'm like, no, it's the majority of them. They're pedophiles. they're gross. But I'm just this guy. Hitchens on a microphone during that debate to call them out saying, fuck you, you buck fuck little kids. This is a corrupt criminal organization. Fuck all of you. Every side needs their asshole. Christopher Hitchens was our asshole. He says what we all think, but if we do it, right, I'm going to get suspended from Twitter. You're going to lose your YouTube channel. Hitchens was the guy who did not give a fuck. And so when he said, fuck you, he meant fuck you. And we're all like, yay. But we can't say it. Every side needs their asshole. He was ours. And he was brilliant at being the person you loved to hate. We needed the Hitch.
He was able to drag up a sort of level of ire that I don't think I could have done. I mean, it was just, he could just really eviscerate somebody verbally.
Oh, yeah. During that interview, I remember, I mean, I don't know who was more effective, Stephen Fry or the Hitch.
Stephen Fry's got that ability to bring out that level of ire as well. I mean, he's a
they both
very
didn't give a fuck. And if I just had to give it to either one, I'd probably say to give it to Stephen Fry, 49 versus 51, only because he was the one gay person on that stage, or at least the only gay person we knew about on that stage. But Hitch was great because he told the truth. He defended his friend. And he didn't give a fuck if he hurt someone's feelings. I still remember probably my favorite part of that debate was Stephen Fry isn't like other girls, right? He's absolutely boy mad. And pretty much you hate him simply because he likes boys. Now, I say it, but I'm going to say, you know what? There's nothing wrong with being gay. Being attracted to the same sex, there's nothing wrong with it. You say it, Lilith says it, Peter says it, it's going to be, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. Hitch was the person to say, fuck you. Fuck you for thinking gay is bad. Fuck you for making that person, and if you look at least American stats, the suicide rate amongst gay teens is the highest. And Hitch is the person to say, you see that 17-year-old boy, he's going to hurt himself? That's your fault. And fuck you. Every side needs their asshole. And he was brilliant at it. All the while doing nothing but kicking facts. It wasn't just fuck you to fuck you, but it was fuck you, and here's the reason why, and you couldn't debate him. Right? No kid should end their life at 17 years old because you read a 2,000-year-old fucking book. Fuck you. And that was Hitch. Every side has their asshole. He was ours, and he was brilliant at it. Brilliant at it, and I miss him for that. We all do. We all do. He says what we all thought. He was great.
One of my favorite Hitch moments, he was I'm not sure it was a debate, but it was like a panel discussion, and there was a rabbi on there, and the rabbi came out with
I know what you're talking about.
A flippant comment that as far as he could see, getting circumcised just improved your chances of getting a Nobel Prize in the future. And Hitch just went for him. How dare you? It was absolutely, it was, a couple of minutes of the highest level of ire that anybody could muster. And the rabbi just saw him sitting there shrinking and shrinking and shrinking in his chair. This verbal barrage that Hitch gave him. But the thing is that when Hitch went off on one of those, I felt he was justified more often than not.
Oh, I would say almost every time. He has definitely tripped over his words. There are some things where I'm like, pull that one back. But when he goes off on a rant, I've always found it to be completely justified. I remember when he went on Fox News and Hannity and Combs. It was right when Jerry Falwell died. He was on the fucking money, right? It was, it's so sad.
Oh, I remember that Jerry, as well.
Yeah, exactly. It is. They were like, let's play a violin, and Jerry Falwell's like, why? Where was the sympathy when Jerry Falwell was talking about Hurricane Katrina? Your faggots, the ACLU, and all, and you're just like, people are dying, they're drowning, they're losing their homes, and the first thing Falwell did was dogpile and pull up the Bible, and you're like, fuck you, you deserve it, God sent it because you like to suck dick. And Hitchens was like, why don't we give him exactly what he gave everybody else? And Hannity, of course, why are you being so mean to him? And it was like, because he's earned it. Like I said, if anyone else says it, we would lose our status. When Hitch said it, it's what everyone was thinking. He just had the stones to say it. He was our asshole, and he was great at it. And the rabbi was either Botek or
I can't
the guy
remember
that debated David Silverman, but he's gone against both of them, and he's absolutely dunked on both of them. And again, you can't debate him. He's got a very harsh delivery. He had a very harsh delivery system, but it was all facts, and you just couldn't say no. You just couldn't say no.
I would have absolutely loved to have had Hitch's take on the Trump presidency.
Oh my God. He would have been brilliant. He would have probably made Trump retire before the end of his term.
Could you imagine what he would have what he would have said about Trump's handling of COVID-19?
Oh, just think about what he would have done to Trump's appearance. We bashed Obama for wearing a tan suit. We bashed Obama. I remember he had a coffee cup during something, and they called him unpresidential. We bashed Obama for reading from a teleprompter. We bashed Obama for apparently being married to a tranny. We bashed Obama for not saluting a Marine coming off of Air Force. We bashed him for everything. Imagine what Trump would have done to a man with a bad tan, married to a woman almost half his age, who posed naked, failed businessman, pathological liar, philanderer. Trump would have made, and that's just the first 5 things I thought of. Hitch would have made him retire before the end of his term. He would have crushed that guy. The world would be better with Hitchens in it. I promise you. I promise you that.
I sometimes think that because I listen a lot to Making Sense with Sam Harris, and Sam has a lot to say about Trump. And some of the language he uses does eviscerate Trump, but he just says it in his normal talking voice, whereas you can imagine Hitch would come out with the same sort of stuff, but it would be it would have so much passion behind it, it would really do the trick.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. So Harris is great because his delivery is always at 50 miles an hour. No matter what he says, it's the same kind of tone. He's got a good sense of humor, but it always stays here. Hitch just kind of had that escalation, and he wasn't afraid to put emotion behind his statements. And emotion, at least in the States, kind of gets taken down. It's like, why are you being so emotional? Because fucker's an emotional topic, right? You support a church that supports pedophilia. I'm supposed to be fucking upset. And some people would be like, well, why can't we just talk the facts about this? Because we've already tried it and it fucking sucks. You support someone who raped a child. Fuck that dude. And he could get away with it. and that was his niche. And again, every once in a while, we all should be so brave and just kind of jump off the cliff and try and pull a Hitch move. We would be better off. We really would.
If we use a reference from Spinal Tap, I don't know if you've ever seen that film. Hitch had the ability to turn it up to 11.
He had the ability to turn it to a 21. Like I said, anyone else, if I did it, if you did it, we would lose our social media presence. Hitch did it, and he got booked for 5 debates after. It was just his style. It's like I said 10 minutes ago. Every side needs their asshole. Christians have a side to Bruggencate. We have Christopher Hitchens, and he's really good at it. He was very good at it.
I don't know if you saw, there's a recent video from Cosmic Skeptic where he actually goes through some of the things that Hitch didn't do well or didn't say well in debates. Yeah. And I think it's one thing to sit and analyze it now, because I watched it and I thought, yeah, he's right. He didn't answer that question, and yeah, he ducked that one. But he did it with so much aplomb that I'm not sure that the person he's debating at the time can spot that he ducked the question. Because you just get this torrent back, and it's so hard to filter that out at the time. When you look back at it, you can say, yeah, he didn't answer the question. But whether you could while you're actually on stage with him, I'm not sure. So I think it was a clever debate tactic on his part as well.
Oh, yeah. There were some times with, I know William Lane Craig has a rule that he won't debate anyone who doesn't have a PhD. Hitchens was one of his few exceptions. And there were definitely some times where I thought Hitch dropped the ball, where he was asked a very direct question, and he did kind of backpedal. And I understand why, because when you deal with a Christian apologist, every wrong syllable you use will be used against you later on. So he was definitely trying to protect himself. But there were definitely some times during that debate where he dropped the ball. So yeah, was he perfect? Oh, fuck no. And if Hitch was alive to review those debates, he'd probably say the exact same thing. But I do miss the guy.
Okay, just going. Well, I think we've been going for a while here, Robert. So it's probably a good place to stop for today. But maybe we should do this again and talk about some other individuals, or maybe just some other issues that come up in the news and things. I always follow your tweets and look at a lot of the stuff you tweet, and there's plenty of material in that we could talk about. You've already mentioned it today, but those idiots with the guns confronting the medical people. There's lots of things like that you often come across, and those are issues that I think that we need to tackle, and more of us need to be speaking out against these sorts of people.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to.
So we'll call that it for today. And yeah, once again, thank you very much for your time. And I'll catch you soon.
My man, I'm always here. I'm always right here.